Here's what our attorneys make us say. We believe all the information we offer on this program is factual and up to date. However, we cannot guarantee its accuracy, and you should not think of it as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. We are also not giving you an offer to buy or sell the investments we talk about. All investments involve varying degrees of risk, and we cannot guarantee any specific investment or strategy will be suitable or profitable for your portfolio. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.
You've worked hard and saved for retirement, but remember, it's what you do with that money that really matters. How will you ensure that you wring every nickel out of your Social Security benefits? Could you pay fewer taxes in retirement? And how and when will you withdraw money from your IRA or 401k? Welcome to Secured Retirement Radio with Joe Lucy of Secured Retirement Financial. Joe's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and has nearly 25 years of helping people just like you. This is where you can count on straightforward and objective advice on how to make your money go further in retirement. And now, here's your host, Joe Lucy.
Retirees, well, they face a bleak future. Now, that's what Warren Buffett has said in his annual letter to the Berkshire Hathaway investors this year, February 27th. And if you're retired or nearing retirement, you want to make sure that you're paying attention. Welcome to Secure Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, CFP, Certified Financial Planner, and I've got Dylan Malberg joining me, and we're coming this morning from our St. Louis Park studio. If you're recently retired or nearing retirement, I think we've got a great show for you this morning. You know, Warren Buffett, he's considered one of the most successful investors of our time, and he has a very stern warning for retirees. Retirees, pensions funds, insurance companies. In his annual letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders, he said fixed income investors worldwide, including those pension funds, insurance companies, and, yes, retirees, face a bleak future. So why is he saying this? Well, it's because returns on CDs, savings accounts, even bonds are pathetically low right now, and they're not expected to improve anytime soon. So if you're putting your money in CDs or in bonds, you're getting next to nothing. And if you try to reach out and get a little bit more yield, well, you can suffer catastrophic losses in the next market correction or bear market. So what do? Coming up on today's program, we're going to talk about the current challenges of fixed income and fixed income investing for retirees. Plus, how other people are successfully generating income in retirement today.
Morning, Joe.
Morning, Dylan. How are you?
Not too bad this morning. We talk about your retirees and fixed income. That kind of seems to be the trend, and you think about this fixed income. It's this reliable, consistent income that retirees can get with minimal market risk that's out there, and this is supposed to replace their paychecks once they transition into retirement. And with interest rates where they are right now, the old adage of whether it's bonds or CDs, and you're living out the interest or whatever they're kicking off, and you're not having to dip into your principal. Well, now we're starting to see certain retirees without a certain plan on how to generate this reliable income. They're going to start dipping into their principal, and they're going to be living in this constant fear of running out of money.
Well, and for years we've been told that, or we all know that as you transition away from just accumulating assets, getting ready for retirement, you want to start considering reducing risk. And the way to do that, for years we've been told, is to increase our exposure to fixed income, to bonds. If you look at the current rates for CDs, we're looking at CD rates of return going out 2 years and still earning less than 0.75%. And these are those high yield CDs that are probably at some of the banks that maybe you aren't as familiar with as some of the others. So buying CDs isn't the solution here to try to get income. I remember the good old days, Dylan, when we could get 5 or 6% on 100,000. So that's $5,000 or $6,000 a year, and now we're talking about less than $1,000. If you're buying into what we've been told, and it goes back, and we'll talk about this later in the program, this efficient market theory where we start to increase our bond exposure to reduce the volatility in our accounts. If you're doing that now, especially if you're doing that through mutual funds, you could very well be exposing yourself, as Warren Buffett says in his annual letter to shareholders, to a very bleak future. And the reason why is because interest rates really have only one direction to go, and that's up. And there's an inverse relationship. When interest rates go up, your bonds go down. So for the last 30 years, Dylan, if I'm investing in just looking at bond rates, we remember back when our first mortgages were double digits, when we thought we were pretty lucky with a 13 or 14% 5-year balloon on these interest rates. Well, now we go to Ronald Reagan coming in 1980, and since that time we've seen interest rates dropping for the most part. Yeah, there's been little spikes here and there, but now we got a 10-year Treasury. Well, it's up from a 0.9 to 1.5, back down to 1.4, but they're nowhere near where they were a few years ago. So as interest rates start to go up, you've got to start planning on the real possibility that we're going to see a loss of principal, loss of the value of that bond over time. And so therefore you're going to have to rely on these meek interest rates that you're getting, 2-3% on a bond. It could be a real recipe for disaster, especially for those families that are going back to what we were told a generation ago. You got to buy more bonds, you got to own more bonds as you transition into retirement. Well, that could really be a recipe for that's setting you up for some failure if you're not careful.
Oh, and Joe, you mentioned that 10-year Treasury, and you look at in 1981, it was 15.8%, and it's fallen all the way down to 0.93% here towards the end of 2020. That's the significant change in that interest rate we're talking about. And you look at interest rates, that 10-year Treasury at 0.93%, and the Feds, the reserves come out and kind of said they want to get to this 2% healthy inflation, they call it. And if you're looking getting 0.93% on your income, inflation's at 2%, you're safely losing 1% a year going forward. And again, doesn't seem like a lot over a year or two, but you add that up over a whole retirement, it can be detrimental. That silent killer that Ronald Reagan talked about.
Well, and so what's really happening here is we've got retirees that are in a tight place. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place, as they say. If you put your money in CDs looking for interest or bonds, well, you're going to have to increase your exposure to a rising interest rate environment, and you're not getting much for that risk you're taking. You can start searching for yield, looking at, let's say, utility companies, things like that, where all of a sudden now we're bringing on a lot more market exposure. It goes against what we've been told. Remember that you've been told that you're supposed to have like a 60-40 blend going into retirement, 60% of your money in stocks, 40% into bonds. And here we are looking at this future where interest rates could really start to hurt us. And it's not just Warren Buffett. There's a lot of economists out there that are saying we may want to rethink the way that we are positioning our portfolios as we transition away from just accumulation into needing to take this money back. Successful retirements, they've never been built on how much money you've saved. They're how much your net worth is, your balance sheet. They're built on the ability to generate income off of the money that's been accumulated. So we got a special offer here today just for the loyal listeners on Secure Retirement Radio. I'd like to show you some strategies that can help you turn your savings and investments into an income workhorse with a free Secured Retirement Income Analysis. Now, the free customized analysis is for your specific financial situation. We tailor every one of these to you and your goals in retirement. You're going to learn the fastest and safest way that you can help increase your income that many people are overlooking. We're going to show you the key to protecting principal from the growing risks on Wall Street, and how you can get even more income when you file your Social Security by making sure you're optimizing that. Now, remember, the analysis is free. There's no obligation, but I'm going to ask that you make that call here this morning. To get the free customized analysis, you'll have to call 952-777-8838. That's 952-777-8838. If you're that kind of person that wants and needs to make your money work for you, but you can't afford to lose a dime of it, this analysis is right up your alley. 952-777-8838.
Coming up next, why USA Today calls your Social Security benefits a nearly perfect source of retirement income.
That's Dylan Malberg. I'm Joe Lucy. Don't go anywhere. More with Secured Retirement Radio.
He's helping people just like you make the most out of every dollar they've saved for retirement. Welcome back to Secured Retirement Radio. Here's your host, Joe Lucy.
What's the matter with you? Hey.
You know those certificates of deposit, your savings account, the passbook accounts, bonds? Now, these have long been the reliable go-to, the safe place, safe options for retirees. But according to Warren Buffett, arguably the most successful investor, those days are over. Now, he's issued this bleak warning, the stark warning that retirees are facing an uncertain future, what he calls a bleak future, if they're investing in fixed income. Welcome back to Secured Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. I got Dylan Malberg joining us in our St. Louis Park studio, and we're talking today about some options to successfully generate income in your retirement planning. Coming up in this segment, why USA Today is calling Social Security a near perfect source of retirement income. Plus, the single most important key to wringing every nickel out of these benefits, wringing every nickel of the benefits that are rightfully yours.
Yeah, we talked about in the first segment this morning on Secured Retirement Radio about this, the trouble with interest rates and this fixed reliable income, and really the ultimate solution to income in retirement is making sure that we're optimizing these Social Security benefits that believe it or not, that you've saved for.
Well, so Dylan, we talk practically every week. We're talking about this concept of mailbox income. And what is mailbox income? Mailbox income is money that you receive each and every month, regardless of what's going on in your 401k. It's while you're working, possibly wages. Maybe you have some rental income coming in. It's this money that you can rely upon in many cases. Now, as you transition away from paychecks, you need to replace those paychecks, and you start looking for other sources of income. And Social Security, 90% of us as Americans are eligible for it. And optimizing this is essential to increasing your mailbox income. You see, if I got an income of $100,000 a year and I'm spending $100,000 a year, where my mailbox income meets my lifestyle obligations, well, when the market has a little pullback, when it's down 30%, remember a year ago when all of a sudden we were down 37% in a matter of 2 months? I'm sleeping well at night because I know that I have time for that money to recover. Now, let's contrast that to somebody that is living on a 4% rule. Somebody that says, I've got a $100,000 lifestyle obligation, and I'm going to take 4% off $1 million, which is $40,000. Now that $1 million gets cut by 40%, 37, and it's sitting there somewhere in the $650,000 range. And now all of a sudden, that $40,000 I was relying upon, well, is no longer 4%. We're looking at, 6.5% or something. And all of a sudden, I start doing some math, and I realize if I'm taking out 6.5%, 7%, boy, my money may not last as long as I do. So optimizing mailbox income is the key for most retirees. And Social Security, as you said, Dylan, what the USA Today tells us is the almost perfect annuity for your retirement pension. It's important that you get this right.
Yeah, and you mentioned that 4% rule too, Joe. And we talked about where interest rates are at right now, and that's really where the game changers with that 4% rule, and really where making sure that you're optimizing Social Security is even more important. And you look at optimizing Social Security, there's 2,720 different rules in the handbook. There's other rules about those rules there's a lot of different decisions that you have to make, and it's not necessarily just about, both waiting until 70 or both taking it 62, but how do we make sure we bring all aspects of your retirement plan together, and that's really where you start optimizing the Social Security benefits.
Well, and here's the thing, Dylan. In today's environment, where we've lost a lot of the tricks that we were able to do prior to the rule changes in 2016, most families that are joining us for a review of their finances, a second opinion, when we do a Social Security analysis, the software kicks back that the highest net present value, we'll get into that when we visit, but the highest net present value is generally waiting till age 70. And most of the time, if I go online, I pull off this Social Security report, or if I Google free Social Security calculator, well, that's what that calculator is going to tell you, too. Wait till 70. Now, the other side of this is everybody's been told, well, Social Security is probably not going to be there for you, so you better take it right away. And when you do that, I can show you mathematically, statistically, that for most of us, unless we've got really crappy health, taking it as soon as possible is probably the absolute worst thing you can do. Again, if there's health issues, there's reasons why you may want to do that. But for the majority of us, waiting till 70 is also almost the second worst thing you could do. Because if you start looking at taking it where one of you might take it at 63 or 64, 66, 68, and I compare that to optimizing or waiting till 70 with one, or even just going out to 68 with one and 70, we can show you what that number looks like. And when you start to bring in the fact that you start collecting checks a little sooner, the break even gets pushed out there past age 80 or 85. But the only way you know that is by understanding these 2,700 rules and understanding that if I go to the Social Security Administration, while they can tell me what the rules are, they can't interpret what those rules mean for me. They aren't going to ask you about your goals in retirement. They aren't going to talk about what you have in the retirement accounts and how you're going to take and spend that down. They aren't going to ask you what your required distributions are. They aren't even going to ask you what your health looks like. They're going to just assume that here's the way to take your most benefit today, and that's all they're legally allowed to tell you. Now, on the other hand, if I'm relying on my, let's say, who else would we go to? Maybe our accountant. Our accountants are not Social Security experts. They aren't going to study the rules. They're studying tax code. That's what we're paying them to do. So then we go to our advisor and we say, hey, Mr. Advisor, Mr. Mrs., what should I do with Social Security? And they come back with, well, you're hiring me to help you with investment strategies. You're hiring me to help you increase your wealth, and I really don't do as much around Social Security. So what you really need to do is you make sure that you're working with an advisor that's working at that level where they become a student of Social Security. Better yet, maybe find somebody that's written a book about it. I don't know who that would be, Dylan. Anyways, get to make sure you're working with an advisor that understands that an income plan is different than a wealth accumulation plan. Reducing taxes is different than a wealth accumulation plan. You see, families hire one of my advisors here at Secure Retirement Radio, because number one, the most important thing for families that are working with us or come in for our complimentary reviews, Dylan, is that they want to make sure that they can maintain their lifestyle in retirement. 27 years I've been doing this. I've never once met anybody that comes and says, you know, Joe, I really just want to cut back on all the stuff I've been spending on and live at a reduced lifestyle. Nobody wants to. Some are forced to do it, but nobody wants to do that. So most families hire us because they want to maintain their lifestyle and know that they can spend in confidence, knowing that the money they're spending in their 60s, they're going to have it in their 70s, and they're not going to regret spending some of that money in their 80s. Number two, families hire us because they hate taxes. They hate taxes. They want to reduce their tax burden, and an investment strategy doesn't show you how to do that. Live your lifestyle, reduce taxes if you can. Joe, can you help us increase our wealth, but don't do it at the compromise of those first two areas? If that sounds like you, then it's a good idea, potentially, let's schedule a Social Security review, an income analysis. The only place you can get it here is right here at Secured Retirement Radio. You see, according to Forbes magazine, 96% of Americans, 96%, are going to lose an average of $111,000 of Social Security income. Means that 4% are going to get it right. Now, the reason why is because they end up claiming their benefits at the wrong time. They rely on a free calculator that tells them how to get the most, but not necessarily how to optimize. Now, we can help you avoid this with the Secured Retirement Social Security Analysis. It's free. In the free analysis, you're going to discover the exact timing that can help you get the most income for you and your family when you file for Social Security. Plus, how you can avoid, or at least reduce, paying taxes on as much as 85% of the Social Security income benefits you're going to receive. Plus, how you can avoid other tax traps, like potentially doubling, almost tripling your Medicare premiums. Now, the strategies we use when claiming your benefits are best suited for families that have at least $500,000. We are not talking about the Social Security disability benefits. We're talking about the benefits that we all set aside money in our paychecks and have accumulated. So if you've saved at least $500,000 and have not filed for Social Security, and you're one of the next 10 callers, we will make sure that we get you our free Social Security analysis. To boot, I'm going to give you a free copy of my book, The Retiree's Guide to Social Security, How to Optimize Your Mailbox Income. Now, the difference between your first and your worst case scenario, it literally is tens of thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you don't want to make a mistake here. So to get your free analysis, give us a call right now at 952-777-8838, 952-777-8838. We'll sit down, give you a second opinion on your income plan. You're going to get a free Secured Retirement Income Analysis, which includes the Social Security analysis we're talking about. I'm going to make sure you walk away with a copy of my book, The Retiree's Guide to Social Security. But you have to call this morning, 952-777-8838.
Coming up next, a contrarian strategy that could be the fastest and safest way to generate more income in retirement.
He's Dylan Malberg. I'm Joe Lucy. Don't go anywhere. More with Secure Retirement Radio in a few moments.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secure Retirement Radio.
Talk.
He's helping people just like you make the most out of every dollar they've saved for retirement. Welcome back to Secured Retirement Radio. Here's your host, Joe Lucy.
All right. You know, if you are retired, you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place these days. You see, if you put all your money into certificates of deposits or bonds, well, you're getting next to nothing. No more interest. And it's possible you could actually be going backwards when you start considering the loss of buying power, safely losing money due to inflation. Now, if you start to reach out and look for higher yield, possibly investing in higher yield stocks, well, you can end up suffering a huge loss when we have our next bear market, the next correction, the next recession. So what do you end up doing? Well, welcome back to Secure Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. I got Dylan Marberg with me, and we're talking this morning about some of the options you have to successfully generate income in retirement. And coming up in this segment, a contrarian strategy that can help you find the safest and fastest way to generate income in retirement, plus an expiring IRS loophole that you want to make sure that you're aware of. You know, Dylan, we are talking this morning about, we started off talking about a letter that Warren Buffett writes every single year. He writes a letter to his shareholders that was released here on February 27th. You know, the Warren Buffett, that guy that's considered probably the best investor of our generation anyways. I mean, he's pushing 90. His partner's 96 these days. But for over 90 years, this guy has been doing nothing but understanding the way to make money in the markets. And he wrote in this letter this year, he says, with a word of caution that if you are a pension or an insurance company or a retiree, you need to understand that there are additional risks right now with fixed income. Those are bonds. And that you may be, seeking or getting. It's a bleak future for you. And this is scary because, for years, Dylan, we've been told, as I'm transitioning into retirement, I should go to more of a 60-40 blend. Let's bring 60% of our money into stocks and put 40% into bonds, because this will reduce our risk at the time we need to do it most, protecting ourselves from market value adjustments or sequence of returns risk, a big loss early on. So we talk about that, but here's for the very first time in any of our generation, since 1980, interest rates have been dropping, and now here we are at a point where interest rates really only have one way to go, and there's an inverse relationship. We know fixed income goes down when bond interest rates go up. So what do? We talked in the second segment a little bit about, let's make sure that we've got enough mailbox income. Let's make sure we're making the right kind of decisions to optimize our Social Security. We talked about how you can come in and get a Social Security analysis. The only place I know you can get the secured retirement Social Security analysis is by calling 952-777-8838. And we'll sit down with you and we'll share with you the way that you should you can optimize your Social Security benefits. The number, 952-777, to get that free analysis, and I'm going to make the offer again. So feel free, if you want to make sure you're getting most of your mailbox income, the most out of your mailbox income by optimizing Social Security, 952-777-8838. And here we are, Dylan, talking about the ways that we can make sure that we are heeding some of the warnings from Warren Buffett and how to get the most income in retirement. Because, let's face it, nobody cares what the net worth is if you can't generate income. And that's so we're talking about this morning. Dylan, what's another way that we can make sure that we are looking for ways that we can get away from this rock and hard place that we've got here through everything going on?
And then probably the safest and even the fastest way to generate more income in retirement is going to be around reducing taxes. And, here we sit, Joe, we're a little over a month out from that April 15th tax day, and everyone's focused on getting the returns filed. Am I getting the refund? Am I getting or do I got to pay in? How's it all going to work? Asking their CPA, what can we do to reduce taxes this tax year, aka last year, 2020, and how can we reduce our tax bill for that? And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about having a look-forward approach, looking at, is there any things we can do around our retirement accounts primarily to lower our overall tax liability and making sure that net income that we have is going into our pockets?
Well, and Dylan, I believe that taxes, and I've been saying this for a long time, that taxes could very well be our largest expense in retirement. Most people know how much money they've saved, but when you start thinking about how much you've saved in the 401k, but when you start thinking about the impact of what taxes are, this partner you have, it's, this IRA no longer stands for individual retirement account. It's a joint account between you and Uncle Sam. And a portion of that money, if you got $1 million balance, it's not all yours. You take it all out at once, you're going to be lucky to keep $500,000 of it. If you take it and piecemeal it out over your retirement years, you're still going to be writing checks to Uncle Sam, to the IRS. Now, the problem is, for the very first time, and I've been doing this 27 years, but for the last 27 years, everybody's been saying tax rates have to go up. But now with everything that's transpired in the last 12 months, we're talking 3 rounds of stimulus, PPPs, EIDLs. If you're business owners, the income, all of this money that they've been throwing out of the helicopters to keep the quantitative easing up, low interest rates, all of this, and now we're sitting on, we're approaching $30 trillion of national debt. The tax laws we're under, the best we've seen in 40 years, are already written to mature, to expire, to sunset December 31st, 2025. That's on just a mere, 5 years if I include 2021. We no longer have the luxury of saying, I think interest rates or tax rates are going to stay low. We know that they're going to go higher. We have an administration that controls the House, the Senate, and the executive branch that is telling us that they are going to raise taxes on us. And if you're not bringing in tax planning to the investment strategies that you have, then you don't have a holistic planning approach. You don't have what I call a tax-smart retirement plan. You've got a investment strategy, a wealth accumulation plan. But tax strategies are different than sitting down with your CPA and figuring out how to interpret tax code to reduce your taxes this year. We're talking about how do we reduce the overall taxation that we're going to have to experience in the next 30 years of retirement. And what are those things we can do knowing that the time is ticking away and we are no longer in a situation, even if you're in that higher income bracket, where you can continue to just kind of wait until the timing's a little bit better. We need to start thinking about how to reduce taxes today.
No, we spent some time talking about Social Security benefits, and you look at those benefits, somewhere between 0% of them and 85% of them are going to be taxable to you. And really what determines that is, there's the provisional income and calculations that determine that. But ultimately it comes down to how are these tax deferred, these retirement accounts coming out and hitting your tax return, and what other impacts can they have on your income. And we talk about the struggles of being able to generate reliable income because the interest rates, having that increased tax liability on your Social Security benefits can really be detrimental to your retirement.
Well, we aren't necessarily just talking about the 1040 tax liabilities. We're talking about, how about some of these hidden taxes we have, Dylan? There are families that are getting the exact same health insurance as their neighbors, but because their income level is higher, they get to pay 3 times more for it. That's a hidden tax. It's called IRMA. It's income related to the Medicare adjustment amounts. You have too much income and you start to pay additional premiums around Medicare. If you aren't aware of this and you're in a higher income, you need to have somebody explaining how this works so you can start to plan around it. We're talking about the real possibility that we're going to see a substantial change around capital gains. They're talking about getting rid of a step up in basis. So you're sitting there with a slew of Delta, Honeywell, 3M, Cargill, whatever it is. You've got this stock that's grown and you kind of leaving it as a life insurance policy for the kiddos one day, assuming it's going to get a step up in basis, or maybe it's for your spouse. That may not be the case anymore. You see, generating income today, it's even more challenging than ever before. And you may not realize this, but the fastest and safest way that you can increase income in retirement, by what we're talking about right now, reducing your taxes. And with the real threat of higher taxes just around the corner, taking advantage of some tax planning strategies today can save you a small fortune. Well, I want to make a very special offer this morning, just for the listeners on today's Secured Retirement Radio. You can learn how you can dramatically reduce or even eliminate taxes in your retirement with a free retirement Social Security. Oh boy, it's a free secured retirement tax analysis. Let me explain how it works. Well, you sit down with us, we'll gather some information, we'll understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. We want to focus on goals in this first session, and then I'm going to take it back to my lab. We're going to run it through the system, and then we'll sit back down with you and we'll show you the exact amount of money that you can be saving with some simple defensive strategies. It's going to be tailored specifically to your goals and your desires in retirement. The customized analysis is free. There's no obligation, but we're only going to offer it to this morning's listeners of Secured Retirement Radio that call today. To receive your Secured Retirement Tax Analysis, give us a call right now at 952-777-8838. That's 952-777-8838. The short window of opportunity to take advantage of some defensive tax planning strategies is about to expire. So give us a call right now at 952-777-8838.
When we come back, some surprisingly attractive options to generate income in retirement today.
He's Dylan Wahlberg. I'm Joe Lucy, back with more Secure Retirement Radio in a few minutes.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secured Retirement Radio. He's helping people just like you make the most out of every dollar they've saved for retirement. Welcome back to Secured Retirement Radio. Here's your host, Joe Lucy.
All right, so we got CDs and savings accounts and bonds. And these have always been your traditional safe haven, the safe money places for retirees. But now, according to Warren Buffett, in his annual letter to investors, his annual letter to the Berkshire Hathaway shareholders, coming from the Sultan of Omaha, when it comes to fixed income options like bonds and such, retirees are facing a bleak future. Welcome back to Secure Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. I got Dylan Malberg here, and we're talking this morning about options to successfully generate income in today's challenging environment for retirees. And coming up in our final segment, we're going to share with you some surprisingly attractive options to generate income in retirement. Dylan, we have to, for years, we've been told, when I was getting my certified financial planning designation, they talked about the importance of making sure we reduce our risk profile as we get ready to retire. They talked about how a optimal blend of portfolios should be somewhere around 60% into stocks and 40% into bonds as you are starting to transition into retirement. In fact, Bill Bengen, who wrote back in the middle 90s, and this whole 4% withdrawal rate rule, many of you have heard this rule of thumb that you can take out 4%. It's all based on the research that Bill Bengen did, the certified financial planner out of Sacramento, California. And he came up with this optimal blend. You got to have 60% of your money in stocks, 40% in bonds. Keep in mind that since 1980, we've seen the interest rates trending definitely down. And here we are in the first time ever, first time in a very long time that we are in a situation where we can almost be assured that we're going to see interest rates start to go up. Now, what that means is when interest rates go up, your bonds prices go down, and maybe for the first time in over 40 years, 50 years, we're in a situation where we are no longer going to get the luxury of living off our interest rates and having the capital appreciation and the bond prices. We could actually see that going down. Now, who this is going to hurt even more are those of you that might be using a pooled account like a mutual fund that you lose control of when those investments are getting bought and sold due to herd investing. So that's kind of what we've been talking about, right, Dylan?
Yeah, and really, with interest rates where they're at, fixed income being an issue, everyone's looking at what else can we use to generate income in retirement, and whether it's dividends, rental income, annuities. Wait till 70, let's maximize Social Security. Reverse mortgage is even an option. Maybe it's a bucketing strategy. You mentioned the 4% rule. There's all these different ways that you can generate income in retirement. But really,
don't forget about some of the other insurance products. We can insure. We can create pensions, right? We can buy an immediate annuity like a pension. We can buy an indexed annuity. We can buy a fixed annuity. Dylan, we can also look at things like structured notes. These are kind of newer on the marketplace, and they don't come without risk, but it's about understanding all the different options, and that's really what I think you want to be looking at when you're getting ready to retire. But you got to get away from just anchoring that the way to do this is by buying bonds and CDs.
No, and really what it comes down to is making sure that you recognize that there are different options, and that there's not necessarily a perfect option. Every one of our clients, listeners of Secure Retirement Radio, making sure that you have a customized tax smart plan that's going to make sure that you're going to be able to accomplish your goals in retirement. And it's not just about one product, one specific investment strategy, but how can we put together all the different options and making sure that you're going to have a plan, a customized plan that's going to help you accomplish your goals.
We're talking this morning about what you need to be considering as you start thinking about generating income, knowing that a lot of what we've been used to over the last several generations is no longer really the same options as what we have available to us today in a low interest rate environment that's going to see rising interest rates. When you start thinking about who's going to help guide you through the retirement planning, if that's what you're looking for, understand that at the very basic, there's 3 levels of service you should be looking at. The very basic level is just those firms that help you buy and sell product, right? So if you go to Schwab or Robinhood account and you're making your do-it-yourself and you're making your own decisions, and many of you listening to us here this morning on Secure Retirement Radio do a fantastic job buying your own investments, and you shouldn't be paying for the advice if you've already got this wired. That's probably the level you're looking at. Just find me the place that can help me generate the transactions, but they're not going to give you the financial advice. At the next level is where you start to get that investment advice. Oftentimes it's kind of It's kind of a more cookie cutter type approach, but you're going to get some investment suggestions. You're going to have an advisor that's helping you with some investment strategies. They'll sit down with you with the quarterly reviews and they'll say, hey, something like you might want to consider adding a little bit more international, or you've got too much, you're a little long in the fixed income. Let's reduce some fixed income and buy some more into large cap growth or something. But they're not going to start sharing with you strategies on how to make sure you're getting the income back, making it last a lifetime. That only occurs when you're working with an approach, a holistic approach, something that's going to look at more than just investment strategies, but how to take the money back, how to make it tax efficient like you get when you're working with somebody here at Secure Retirement Radio. Because generating income in retirement today is more challenging than it has ever been. And you may not realize it, but the fastest and safest way to increase income is oftentimes by reducing taxes. Now, the threat of higher taxes is no longer a guess. We have some certainty now that we know this is going. If you want to get a secured retirement look-forward tax analysis, call right now at 952-777-8838. We'll gather some information. We'll bring it back to the lab. We'll share with you a tailored approach and show you exactly how much money you could be saving with a secured retirement tax analysis. The number, 952-777-8838. The lines are only open till noon today, so give us a call right now, 952-777-8838. That's all we have for this week's show here on Secure Retirement Radio, but we'll be back next Saturday with more from Dylan Wahlberg and myself, Joe Lucy. Have a great weekend.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secured Retirement Radio.